12 years and developed expertise in branding and entrepreneurship. He went on to be a mentor and coach for CEOs and business owners for Vistage worldwide in 2016 before returning home to England. As a global citizen, Rotary felt like home when she joined in 2000 in the Chicago area. After serving as district governor for 6450 in 2014-15, she was appointed Rotary coordinator for Zone 28, 2016 to 18, Zones 28 and 29 Institute Chair of 2017, and an International Assembly training leader 2017 and 18. Most recently, Nicki served as a seminar trainer for International Assembly 2019 and 2020, was a member of Rotary's Strategic Planning Committee, which was a 3-year appointment ending in 2019. So obviously a great deal of relevant background here for what's going on at the present time. In January 2018, Nicki returned to England and immediately joined the leadership development team for Rotary Great Britain and Ireland. As I said, she's a member of North Cotswold and very, very welcome in that esteemed club. December 2019, elected as Rotary International Director and leader of the association 2021 to 23. Recently honoured with Rotary's 2019-20 Service Above Self Award, one of 150, I believe it is, granted every year. She's a strong supporter of Rotary Foundation, founding member of the Paul Harris Society, a major donor and a member of the Bequest Society. What are Nicki's core passions? Strategy, leadership coaching and development, and motivational speaker. So we're really looking forward to hearing Nicki this evening. And she's using those skills to help in service to Rotary to help bridge the gap for the next generation of leaders to lead us in our second century of service. So just a little job, Nicki, on the side. I welcome you to come and address us all this evening, please.
Thank you so much, Chris. I'm pretty sure I remember asking you not to tell everyone all of that, but never mind. Mary, if you could just upload the slide. There's about 200 of them, I think. So it should take, no, I'm just kidding. No, we're not doing a slideshow tonight. We're going to have a nice little fireside chat, if that's okay. So I thought we'd just talk one-to-one, and I'm very conscious. Thank you so much for inviting me to this wonderful event of a collaboration between 4 districts, because that's something I can get very excited about. I think that's really showing the way and leading the way. And I just want to say thank you to all of you, whether you're a club president, a past president, a club membership chair, a district role, or just one of those lovely quiet Rotarians that does a lot of the work in the background and never asks for any recognition. Welcome, and thank you so much for giving up your time tonight. I thought, because I'm very conscious that some of you have met me before and others haven't met me at all. And so I'm going to ask forgiveness from some of the ones that have already met me. And because you might start hearing a few things repeating. I know we might have several AGs on the call tonight. That's assistant governors, of course, can't use acronyms, but we always do. And I actually spoke to the AGs on the part of their training as a kickoff last night. So forgive me if there's going to be a couple of repeats, but at the same time, we did cover a lot of material. And who knows, you might hear something different. It's like the movie you watch 3 times and you hear something different every time. So let's start. I thought I'd start by just telling a little bit about why I'm so passionate about Rotary, just to put it a little bit into context. And sorry to those members of my club who are going to have to hear this again, but there we go. I think I just want to kick off by saying we are at an amazing time in Rotary. And my journey in Rotary started back actually when I left England and went to the United States. And I was 28 and pregnant at the time. I don't recommend that, by the way. If you want to move continents, don't do it when you're pregnant. Point to self. But my husband was doing an MBA, and we thought, let's go and do it somewhere else. I always felt like he was my passport to the world, really, because he was born and raised in Zambia. And I always felt like I was going to travel and see a bit of the world. Don't ask me why. I just did. So as Chris told you, I came from KPMG. Pete Marwick. And then when I went pregnant to the States, I couldn't work because I didn't have a visa. And I don't know how many of you ever had a moment where you suddenly lose your job and you can't work. It was like, wow, I was amazed how much of my identity was tied up in my job. So I thought, wow, what am I going to do about this? So I joined an organization called Female, which actually was nothing to do with feminism. It was formerly employed mothers at loose ends. And that was my saving grace, quite honestly, because I met women who wanted to talk about something other than just babies, loved my babies, but I wanted to sort of talk about other things, and I didn't know anyone. And it was through that I met this lovely lady called Pam Denniston. And she was speaking at a conference. I think I got involved in organizing the conference, and she was speaking on finding your life's passion. And I knew that accounting wasn't it. I wasn't quite sure what it was. I'm still seeing people coming in the waiting room, by the way, so just in case anyone's leaving them out there. So I thought, what am I, I have to find my life's passion. So I invited her back to my house, and I said, tell me a bit about how you do. And it was a great conversation. Time passed so quickly, and she was in change management consulting. And she said, well, why don't you come and work for me? And I said, oh, that's really nice of you, but I can't do that. I said, I can't do that because I've not got a working visa. She said, oh, well, let's get you one. So that I was very grateful. Wonderful lady. She taught me all about the people aspects of business on top of the numbers side that I'd learned from KPMG. And that stood me in really good stead for my career, I have to. And it was under Pam's wing that I started an organization called SAGE, Seeking Advice, Growth and Excellence. And that was really a peer group advisory for people who ran a business. And I wanted to go and find the people who were running the business. So I went to the local chamber in Naperville, which is where I was living by this time, outside of Chicago. And I said to the CEO of the chamber, I said, I'd like to meet all the movers and shakers in town. He said, well, get in line. So everybody else, why do you want to meet them? I said, oh, I just want to help them and put them together in a circle. And he said, oh, okay, that's a good enough reason. So he introduced me. And it was one of those members that introduced me to Rotary. And I was 34 at the time. And, I think Paul Harris, in case you didn't know, he was 37 when he started Rotary. So I was very fortunate to start Rotary very early on. And I have to be totally honest, I joined for networking reasons. I wanted to know who these people were. I wanted them, meet people who would refer me to new clients. However, it was a very active, hands-on club. They met at 7 a.m. in the morning on Fridays. Whew, not sure I learned what that looks like anymore, except for when I can't sleep in the first place. But, it was a very early, active service club. And so we were cooking pancakes for the homeless at 5 a.m. one morning. And I stood there and I thought, wow, I've really got to know these people. These are amazing people and they have the same values as me. No wonder I feel so at home. And I think that's one of the essences of Rotary, that if only we could capture that and put it in a bottle, is how at home we feel around people with similar values and people with a service mindset and people you want to hang out with and you get a lot from, but you almost wouldn't have met any of them in the normal walks of life if you didn't join Rotary. So you'll notice a theme coming out here as I tell my story about some of the values that I think we overlook sometimes in Rotary. That was enormous to me. And I think, like I said, I went back to networking is where I started. And I think of Rotary as the original LinkedIn, by the way. We got there way ahead of LinkedIn because Paul Harris actually had a similar situation to me. He came to the area, he didn't know anyone, and he wanted to do business with people that he thought had the same values and ethics, very strong ethics platform. And so he picked one from each trade so he could give each of them the business. And they used to rotate hosting the meetings, which is why we're called Rotary. They rotated where the meetings were held. Just a little tidbit in case you didn't know that. So anyway, roll forward. I got on the track as I think you all do. You don't say no, you say yes. And it's like you're running a project and you're collecting coats for the homeless and the cold and you're doing all sorts of things before you know it. And I was very fortunate to get asked to be the International Service Director right at the time of the Chicago Centennial. And that was an amazing time because obviously we were celebrating 100 years of Rotary and it was right in our backyard. So I was able to take the children and, got really immersed into the internationalism of Rotary very quickly. And it blew my mind. And the president of the club, he came and said to me after that, you know, I think we should do a water project in Zambia. It's the poorest country in the world, you know. And I said, I know. He said, well, how do you know? I said, because that's where my husband was born. He said, no way. He said, that's a coincidence. I said, no, it isn't. Nothing's a coincidence in Rotary. And I think, I don't know if you find that, but the more you're in Rotary, the more you realize how connected the world is. So it was very fortunate. And our children, Will's and my children, Sam and Chloe, were just 13 and 11 when we took them to Zambia. And the impact that had on their lives was extraordinary. I mean, it's shaped very much who they are today. My daughter is actually working in sustainable development and leadership in nonprofits. And Sam didn't choose that direction, but it definitely had a core impact on him. He was 13 at the time, and I remember him coming up to me and saying, Mum, how are these people so happy? They don't even know where they're going to eat next. They're happier than the people back in Naperville. All my friends do is moan about them not getting the latest iPhone or the latest Nike shoes. And it just, they couldn't believe that. And Sam actually, roll on a couple of years, came up to me and said, Mum, I'd like a car for my 16th birthday. And I said, well, good luck with that one, because there's no way we're getting you a car. Did you learn nothing? You know, if you want a car, you go get a job. So he did, and he got a car. We actually supported him on the insurance because he saved up. It was pretty old banger, mind you. But then he said, I want a private license plate. And I thought, oh, have we taught you nothing? You don't need a private license plate for an old banger of a car. He said, well, I'll just do it with my own money. And when he got the license plate said Sikomo, which means gratitude in Zambian. And I thought, wow, that'll make me eat my words. So bottom line is, it's not been just a gift to me, it's been a gift to my family. And I went on, I was so lucky. I was club president in 2009-10, when John Kenny from Scotland was the president, and he said, the future Rotary is in your hands. Apologies to anyone who's Scottish on the meeting. But I was like, really? And I think I might have taken that a little bit too seriously, to be honest, because I've never said no since. But it was like, wow, that really got to me. And I thought, what a privilege, though. It took me off to India on an NID. I served as DG and blah, blah, blah. But the point is, to me, Rotary is the gift that just keeps giving. Do you anybody on the call ever stop and think about that? Have you ever stopped to think how Rotary is a gift in your life? Because I know we have to talk about membership all the time because our membership numbers are declining. But what if we turn that around and say, who have you given the gift to? Think of it as a gift. Who can you give that gift to? And quite frankly, the earlier you can give it to them in their life, the better they're going to be, because the amount of leadership development I have received in Rotary is off the charts. It takes a little bit more leadership muscle to lead leaders than it does lead followers, right? We know what that's like. It's called herding cats sometimes. But the fact is, we love it because we're passionate about service, and that's what we do. So there's so many angles to how Rotary is a gift. And Simon Sinek is a favorite business guru of mine, and that's Sinek. And he has a brilliant TED video out there called Start With Why. And he says, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And that is so true. So if we can express our personal why, and when somebody comes up and says, well, what is Rotary? You know, don't say, oh, well, it's a club, and I go on Tuesdays, and it's great. I love my club, and we have really good meals. Well, most of the time. Sometimes the chicken's a little bit rubbery. And no, don't say that. If you say, what is Rotary? And you say, it's the best decision I ever made. And then wait. And now you've got their attention, and then you can share your why and how it's a benefit to you. And I know that's going to sound a little controversial, because it's, why are we talking about what's in it for us? This is a service organization. But if you haven't heard it before, let me share with you the new vision statement of Rotary. Together, we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. And it's that last piece that's in there as well. And I think we need to own that, and we need to be able to express that. And I don't understand, quite honestly, why there aren't loads of younger generations lining up outside our doors to come and be in Rotary. When I first got into my club, going to embarrass him if he's on the call now, but I sat next to a gentleman called Colin Gatenby, and he's an AG now. And I said, hi, Colin, what do you do? He said, well, I've been the club secretary and I've been the club, you know, and I've done this. I said, that's not what I asked you. I said, what do you do? He said, well, I'm retired. I said, well, okay, don't make this any harder on me. What did you do? And he said, well, I was head of purchasing for Sainsbury's. And I said, what, in Cheltenham? He said, no, global purchasing. I thought, wow, imagine the experience sat next to me and the amount of expertise that you can come across when you're sat in a Rotary club, if only you find out who's with you. And we just don't do that enough. We don't find out what we do outside in our real lives. And at the end of the day, that's a major part of Rotary, is our vocation and our vocational skills and sharing those. So I think there's so many reasons why Rotary is a multi-generational organization. There's no right age to join Rotary. You know, you can be young and sit next to mentors. You can be a mentor and get invigorated by having a mentee. You can work on service projects together. You can be juggling children and goodness knows what and still have a sense of purpose and self beyond family. There's so many reasons, and it's getting down to that. So I think we've got membership growth sorted now for all 4 districts, right? Can we check that box? Right. Let's share our stories. And actually, that's the main thing, isn't it? We don't share the stories. So let's get into that and make sure we share that. So who loves change? Anybody else on the call? I guess I can't see people's hands, but I actually love change. You know, when you move continents twice, it's sort of part of the requirement to love change. But I think there's so much to gain from change. And I must say, I love being back here in the Cotswolds. I feel like I've got my feet on solid ground again. I love raising my children in the States, but it's so nice to be home. And I think that's great to sort of have a place of inner peace. And I'm very lucky, the Cotswold countryside. I hope all of you have found somewhere in these tough times to be able to get outside occasionally, because it is very nurturing under the stresses and strains that we're living with at the moment. So I've been spending a lot of catch-up time in Rotary Great Britain and Ireland since I came back, and it's been fascinating to learn about how Rotary is done differently here. We are an incredible independent entity, very unlike the rest of the world, actually. We're a membership association, which means that our clubs have a say and have a vote in how we are organised, either at the district councils or at the annual business meeting for the Rotary Great Britain and Ireland. So that's unusual. And I think it gives us a great strength, because the whole point of Rotary existing is to support the work of the clubs. It's the work you do at the club level that is actually the essence of why we're in Rotary. And I think we need to always remember that and not get mired in everything else we do in administration. We need to not lose sight of the real work of Rotary is the service. And I think that's so important. So why do we need change? Well, at the end of the day, we have to face up to some facts. I don't know how many of you had a chance to watch this membership summit, but the facts are we are losing the equivalent of a district every year, and we don't want to. This is too amazing an organization to have it dwindling away, you know. And unfortunately, we do have a little bit of a tough age profile at the moment. You know, 85% of our Rotarians are over 60, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not picking on anyone. I've got grey hair too, by the way. So, but we do need to bring in some younger generations and some people who are still working. So we've got to do everything we can to become relevant in our communities and to be perceived as relevant in our communities. And I love our traditional clubs, and I love the way that we work. And I know, I mean, my club, I think there's now 2 women in my club, but when I first joined, there was 1. And we do such great work in the community, and they are quite a traditional club. There's nothing wrong with that. I think we made a radical decision to drop one of our toasts. So that was a major move forward. But the fact is, you know, we do a lot for the community, and I'm sure that's true of many of your clubs. But we do need to, we're not always perceived as that open and that inviting. And I don't know how many of you have seen President Holger's logo this year, but did you notice all the doors are open? Rotary opens opportunities. Finally, we are not meeting behind closed doors. You know, we are meeting online, and it's proving to be a very accessible way of coming and meeting with us without having to get stuck in traffic jams and get lost on the way. And it's really helping us bring some of these newfound volunteers who are volunteering for the NHS for the first time and asking them to come and be with us, come and talk with us. That was the whole point behind the Together Talks, which I know some of you are familiar with. And if you're not familiar with Together Talks, then please ask somebody who can tell you about them, because they're designed to bring in great speakers and on great topics. And that's one of our slogans, by the way: join leaders, exchange ideas and take action. And it's all about asking non-Rotarians to come and sit with us, have a great discussion, and then work together in our communities. So, and that's of course what it's all about. So let's focus in a little bit more then on what it is that you can do at a grassroots level at the communities, and how do we embrace change? I know lots of people want to, and there's some people who say, yes, we want to, but we still don't know how. I say, let's not force those clubs that don't want to change, but let's ask those clubs to also help us plant new clubs and bring in new Rotarians. People want to do it their way. They love to buy. They don't want to be sold. So having them a chance to come in the door and do it a little bit differently. Again, speaking from experience, my own club, we started a satellite club, and that club meets just twice a month. And when they were meeting, that is, they were meeting in the village hall, and they bought their own bottle of wine and a packet of crisps. And they have done so much good in the community already. They're very close to the school, and they've put in some vegetable gardens for the school, and they're very active. And it's just great because that's infused some energy into our own club too. So it's a win-win. It's a win-win. The more people in Rotary we have, the more our communities will notice us, and the more they'll be starting to ask questions. Well, who are you guys? What do you do? And on that front, I think we do need to get clear what we do. I remember when I was a club president and the governor came and visited, and the governor said, would your community notice if you weren't here? I thought, ouch, that hurts. Wow, what a question. Of course they'd notice. We're doing all this work all the time. We give these checks out to the community all the time. And I thought, well, the trouble is, I'm not sure we have a clear identity. Our club, we gave checks to all sorts of places, and we didn't really have a clear identity. So we got together with the other 3 clubs in the area, and we said, look, why don't we each have a specialty? So one club became the cause of the homeless. One club said, we'll take the youth. And our club, Naperville, one of the other Naperville clubs, because there was 4 in the community, we said, well, we'll tackle the tough subject of teen and drug abuse. And then suddenly it was much clearer to anyone in the community what we were doing and why we were doing it, which made them want to come and help. And they could make a choice, because we all met at different times and we all had a very symbiotic relationship, and we would help with each other's projects, and it worked really well. So I think I do want us to stop and think, if we're writing checks, if we're raising money and we're giving it away without leveraging it through this incredible foundation that we have, how much are we really adding value? If anyone can write a check to the same charity, how much are we adding value? And do we follow up where the checks are spent? Do we know where they're going? We don't get to claim the credit if we're just doing that without sort of doing more service. And President-elect Shekhar, who just held his International Assembly, which is where all of the district governors from all over the world, all of the incoming governors, they go to assembly. Of course, we all sat in our living rooms or in our kitchens this time, but it was still an incredibly inspiring event. And he has now come up with the new theme, and the new theme is Serve to Change Lives. And I think these last 3 themes have been so prophetic. Rotary connects the world, and look at us. We're connecting on Zoom. People are Zooming in and out of all sorts of different countries. You could go to a meeting anywhere and you wanted, and literally anywhere you wanted if you wanted to stay up to 4 a.m. But if you didn't want to stay up to 4 a.m., you could at least look for meetings that are happening in the same time zone. And many chances to see Rotary done differently. And I think it just breaks my heart, really, when so many of our Rotarians never look beyond their club walls, and they never visit another club. They don't learn from how differently things can be done there. They don't visit outside of the district, and they don't visit outside of the country. And for those that you have tried it, it's amazing. When we get that chance to travel again, when you're next on holiday, don't rule out the opportunity of going to see a Rotary club. And you might think, why would I want to do that on holiday? Well, you meet the most amazing people, and they invite you into their homes, and the hospitality is second to none. When I hear people talk about worrying about the dues and the value cost of their dues, if you take out the meals, because that confuses it, we're down to about £10 a month. That's priceless, that opportunity to travel around the world. It's like a passport to 200 something countries where you'll immediately have a friend on the other end. So I think there's so much to gain from looking at that. I want to just before I wrap up, go into the 4 strategic priorities. And these sound strategic, which means it must be somebody else's job. But no, actually, President Holger is asking every single club to consider these 4 priorities. That way we can all make sure we're rowing in the same direction towards a healthy future. So here they go. Number 1, increase our impact. First thing, when did your club last do a community assessment? When did you first ask the community what they think they need? Last ask the community. Because to be relevant to our communities, we need to make sure we're serving the communities, not what we think they need, but what they really want. And that will get us much more noticed if we're asking those questions. Looking at how we can focus our efforts, instead of so many different things that we do and being generalists, how can we focus our efforts on things that have a greater impact? Because the more impact we have, the more we'll get noticed, the more people will want to join with us, the more money we can put into our own foundation, and the more we can multiply the money that we raise in our fundraisers. So it's a really healthy cyclical cycle if we can get that formula right. I've already talked about possibly being cause-based. So new clubs, it works very well if they have a cause, because younger generations specifically, I think, want to know where the money's going. And they don't want to do all of the niceties around the meeting. They just want to do the work. And they might be passionate about slavery, or they might be passionate about the environment, or they might be passionate about peace building. And they just want to do the work. So having a chance to say, come on board and join us, you know, how often do we stop and ask people joining us why they joined? What's their passion? Instead of just assuming they'll just fit along with everything else we do, we should make sure we ask them those questions. So I think that's very important. And I think we should celebrate the successes of our impact, because then the community gets to hear about it, because all too often we're a far too well kept secret, and we should be blowing our trumpets a bit more and not being so shy. I know it's not quite the British, and you know, I'm not sure I know all of the different cultures of our four countries, but I think there is this ridiculous sense sometimes of, no, we shouldn't talk about what we do. Yes, we should, because it's too good and we need to claim it. So that's number 1. Second, expand our reach. That basically means bring more in and have more people join us. Now, they don't have to necessarily join the club. You know, look at all these charities that we've supported over the years. What if we invited some of the members of their staff and said, let's work with you on a joint project. This is your passion. Let's work together on a joint project. And that again can get them finding out about who we are, as well as us finding out about more who they are, and better serving the community again. Getting to know those people that we give the money to. I'm not sure we always ask those questions. Asking them to come back and tell us what they did with the money and how it made a difference. That's inspiring. That helps keep our members engaged when they can see the difference that they're making from all the work they do on the fundraisers. And it's those storytelling that's going to help us. That's what we don't do so well. You know, we're very good at putting pictures of ourselves eating meals and having meetings on the internet, but it'd be much nicer if we were out there digging fields and digging up vegetable gardens and planting trees. And those are the pictures that really help tell the story of who we are. And then enhancing participant engagement, number 3. And this is where we come back to Shekhar's emphasis on service. And this, I think, is important. You know, look at what we're doing right now. Look how much more visible we are responding to this horrendous pandemic, where we're all out there. And so many Rotarians have been helping bring food, helping with food bank donations, helping deliver drugs and much needed medicine to homes. And now, of course, helping with the vaccination program. And there's so much we're doing worldwide on that, by the way, because we've taken all the infrastructure we built with the polio now, and now we're helping with the COVID. It's an amazing claim to fame, leveraging our legacy, being proud of where we came from and making it relevant in today's society. So wear your Rotary pins, wear your Rotary shirts, wear your Rotary logos, wherever you get the chance, and make sure you're seen when you're out there. That's a great way to keep people engaged and valuing what we do. because too often we gain Rotarians, but we lose them in 2 years. And that's not helping, because then we've got to go back and find some more. So we've got to do what we can to get to know those people, invest in relationships. Remember to say thank you. Remember to not assume they know everyone, but to keep introducing them to people and introduce them to the Learning Centre. Help them learn about the wide world of Rotary out there beyond just the club. And put together a member orientation program where you're not just inducting them to the club and saying, well, leaving it to them to figure it out, but make sure they understand what the club does, what the district does, what the Rotary Great Britain and Ireland and the whole world of Rotary. Help them see that all that is on offer for no extra money, by the way. So I think that's huge. And then finally, increase our ability to adapt. And look at us, look how much we've changed. As horrific as this pandemic has been for so many, and I just want to pause a minute, because I know I can be very upbeat sometimes, but I don't want anyone to think that my heart, it goes out to all of you who have lost loved ones directly or through somebody else or even been ill yourself. And it's been horrific. But at the very same time, this pandemic has been an enormous catalyst for accelerated change. And it's helping Rotary really project forward on a much stronger path. And it's helping us get to know each other in ways that we never would have done before. And it's making it easier to have those ad hoc meetings without being so incumbent on people's time. I'll never be an advocate of of meetings without people, though, because I think, well, let me put it this way, but I didn't say that quite right. I think there are places for having virtual meetings, but we also need that mix of actually getting together and rubbing shoulders with people when we get the chance. So I think we need to go forward with a mix of both and know when it suits us best to do it online, or whether we can then get together and have socials and learn and inspire each other in person as well. We don't want to just take old Rotary and force it onto an online environment. We want to move forward and say, what's the best option going forward to hopefully blend all of that so that we can build back better, or build forward better is what I like to say. So how else can we adapt? Making sure that we are looking at how can we do things differently? How can we innovate? A lot of clubs are saying, how do we fundraise in a virtual environment? Well, I've seen some amazing fundraisers, silent auctions online. I've seen dog shows online. I've seen virtual duck races. There's so many ways to innovate that weren't immediately obvious to us before. And of course, it was always obvious to us. It was always there. We just didn't necessarily see it because we weren't forced to think differently. And the COVID situation has asked us to do that. And I think looking at standing orders, making sure that your standing orders are standing you in good stead, because that's what they're really in essence for. They're not meant to be blocking your growth or for keeping the rigid straitjackets on. We want it to spur us into action. So lots of things going on. And I think there are some changes going on at the Rotary in Great Britain and Ireland level to make sure we're better supporting the work of the clubs. We're looking at greater continuity and ways that we can move beyond 1 year. Because we all know, look at the club level, how hard is it when we go left 1 year, right the next, left again? It's very hard to move forward. So we've got to look at building that continuity. And we're looking at putting a board into place that will be being brought forward at the annual business meeting this year that will actually really help us, because it'll be a 3-year term. And we can all work together then in a bit more of a longer term plan towards a healthier future and do more to support the work that the clubs are doing. So I think that's probably where there's a lot of information, but I want to leave some time for questions, Mary or
I'm the one doing questions, Nicki, you'll be pleased. Actually, it sort of leads nicely into, it was more of a comment than a question, but you could elaborate. Hugh Thomas has said going forward, what he'd love to see are hybrid meetings, 2 each month online, 2 face-to-face.
Fantastic idea. And I think that's exactly right, is we really do need to think differently. So I was actually invited to speak at a meeting in Australia, but they were all actually there because they're out of lockdown where that meeting was, and they were having a lovely meeting. And then myself and a few others were on TV screens. And when it got to time to speak, they all turned and looked at the screen, and yet we could see what they were doing. I was a bit annoyed that the angle was slightly wrong because they were sat right near to this ocean view and I couldn't see it. But other than that, it's a wonderful way to go forward, is to bring guests, bring friends, you know, that have never heard about Rotary, just bring them into that hybrid situation. You can broadcast your meetings on Facebook Live if you've got some technical gurus in the club, and if you've got a good speaker, and that way the community can find out. All of these WhatsApp groups that have emerged in the communities. Has anyone noticed that? So many WhatsApp groups of people who don't know Rotary yet. I think they're Rotarians, they just don't know it yet. You know, we've got to invite them in.
Thank you. The next one is from William Williams. What is the major difference between Rotary in Chicago and in the Cotswolds? Now, we're not discussing weather here.
Well, that's a really, really good question. And it is a lot of difference. You know, that was the birthplace of Rotary. So it was the very first club was in that district. First club in the whole world back in 1905. And to some extent, Chicago was this incredible mix of very traditional Rotary and very brand new Rotary at the same time. And because, you know, you had this oldest club who were very formal, and yet there was this infusion of a very cosmopolitan city life. And they were attracting lots of young people who wanted to do things differently. And that was great. So there really was a much more diverse, which certainly had a lot more women. I guess they got started a little bit earlier. Not really, because women weren't allowed in anywhere until 1988. But a lot more women, a lot more younger people, much more service focused, I would say. Much more service focused. And they used grants a lot. They used grant money, not just to go out of the country and support international projects, but we brought grants into the area. And that was actually very unusual. You know, you think Chicago is a very wealthy area. Why should grant money come into Chicago? Well, we did an amazing peace building project with the high schools in the Chicago area where there was horrendous crime. And we were teaching middle-aged children the alternatives to bullying and violence and gang violence. And so it was very valid use of grant money. I think we sometimes think it's all got to go somewhere else. No, it can come this way. And our community is going to need us now more than ever, quite frankly, with the impact of COVID and how hard hit some of these entrepreneurial businesses are. We could look at using our DDF and money and using it as microfinancing to help entrepreneurs get back on their feet and ask them to pay the loan back when they're ready. And then you get the money back and you can give it to someone else. I mean, how can we argue with that? So that's what Chicago's like. Coming here, you know, it has been different. As I said, it's a different structure. I didn't know that we had district council meetings and these meetings where the clubs get to, you know, elect everybody. And I think that's a wonderful way because the clubs need to have a say and they need to be valued and heard. So I think it helps us keep a much closer relationship with the clubs than I saw necessarily over in Chicago. And of course, Chicago was where the world headquarters was as well. So we were very fortunate to get some incredible speakers through that. But by the way, I know where they are if you need any.
Thank you. I don't know if you're aware, but quite a few clubs support Kiva microfinance and also Lend with Care. It's also been put into primary schools with Rotarians funding it, etc., to give them all of the skills that were used in making those loans. Anyway, moving on. We have Richard Lee says, with the donations to foundation dropping, do you have any ideas for encouraging members to contribute?
I do. So first of all, I think our leaders need to walk the talk. I'm a big believer in walking the talk. And that's why I give to the foundation. And now, to be honest, I'm not independently wealthy. But I decided to make a commitment and I did it over a very long time. So if you commit to a sort of standing order, if you like, and you just do a little bit every time, it's amazing how that can accumulate. And so that means we can proudly say we're investing in our own foundation. And the way I found that easiest, quite frankly, is I stopped giving to all these other charities, because I just found as a business owner, I got requests all of the time. Can you give here? Can you give there? And I'd write a $20 check or a $50 check, sometimes a 200. And I thought, well, I don't even know where that's going. So I just started saying, Rotary is my preferred charity of choice. And that's where I put my money. And it meant that I had a solid answer when everyone asks you for your money. No, I give it to Rotary because it multiplies when I give it to Rotary, 2 to 3 times or even more with polio, with a Gates match. So I think it's about having the leadership walk the talk. And I think it's about asking everyone to consider doing it in small increments and do it consistently, not sporadic giving. Because quite honestly, once you've committed to a standing order, do you really watch it going out of your bank account? You're not going to notice £5, going out every, I mean, okay, everything's relative to everybody's personal situation. This isn't a guilt trip. Everyone should give at the level that they're comfortable with. But I think if we do it consistently versus as one-time shot, then there's a lot more ways we could do it. The other thing, I was telling an incoming governor the other day, they're having a Paul Harris Fellow lunch, and I think that's great. But Paul Harris Fellows are very different here. They're given as a recognition of service with no expectation of money. And I've understood that a lot of people here think it's almost crude that somebody can write a check and get a Paul Harris. The whole point of a Paul Harris was to encourage people to give money to the foundation. So giving them away without asking for there to be a monetary association. I'm fine if someone else wants to write a check for 1,000 to recognize somebody else, but that was the whole point of them, was to encourage people to give. And I think so it's those different levels of giving and making sure people understand all those options. And then you can use the points that we get when we give to recognize people in the community. And of course, we don't always have to give from our own pockets. There's giant corporations out there that we could work with and get sponsorship from. They can donate to our foundation. Those partnerships, the charities that we've, well, maybe not the charities because they've got their own agendas, but the businesses in the local community, they can contribute. They can certainly contribute to the polio and Polio Now. And, a lot of companies are trying to build corporate social responsibility and have their employees have a sense of purpose. So let's rescue them. Let's help them with that. We can tell them where to put the money. I had a lovely idea today, and I think this is great about, can I just say about the polio? We're all getting these free vaccinations. What if everyone just donated to show gratitude for getting a vaccination they don't have to pay for? That's an easy way to get money.
And the bad news is that's not your idea, because it began in Austria, because I pinched it for this district as well.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't my idea. It definitely wasn't my idea. But I love sharing ideas with other people. So that's part of the, yeah.
Something else to follow on from what you're saying about, the direct debits to foundation. I should know the answer to this, but I think it's part of the presidential citation too. If you have X number of folk in a club giving to foundation, it's one of the criteria.
It is. I mean, for good reasons. It's our foundation, and we have so much to be proud about. The amount of money that's been given out on disaster grants is phenomenal. It's so much money has been given out to support our communities that we're actually running out this year. So they're actually having to look for more ways to raise more money, because it's just, and to think if there's some districts out there with money sat in the bank, please don't leave it there. Find a way to offer challenge for people to match it or do something with it, because that's what it's to be put to work. That's what money is for.
Now, this was a comment, but it follows on from what you said, because Mike Rye makes the point that because polio is highlighted so much, that maybe foundation monies are not forthcoming because they're going into polio. So he's questioning that balance.
Yes, and that's a really good point. And I think, everyone gets fed up if you're constantly getting hit up for money, that's for sure. But I think as Rotarians, we have to own this wonderful legacy of what this means when we wear our pins and what it means to be a Rotarian. And number one priority in the world, the number one external priority is to finish the job on polio. We need to finish. And as we know now through learning through this vaccine, you can't just say, oh, we don't need to do that, because one single person getting on a plane from Afghanistan or Pakistan, coming and interfacing with a child that's not been vaccinated, and we all know there's a lot of people who are anti-vaccines right now, that could bring polio back here. So it is something we need to care about, even though it's been something that's gone for a long time. A polio case anywhere is a polio threat everywhere. And that will be the case with COVID. And then it is a responsibility to be proud of our foundation and to leverage our money in the way we give, and have that money match what we're doing to give more to the communities. So I say, try and find a way to do both. Try and, even if it's taking the same amount of money that you have and just splitting it, but try and find a way to do both. But make sure it's from your heart. You know, don't feel that you can't do it unless it's from your heart. It's very important that you do what's authentic for you.
One thing we know is that perhaps we could be better at getting the Rotary brand out there, but Lynn Crabtree also feels that we need to be better at getting out there that we're non-religious and non-political.
Oh my goodness, that is massive. How are we doing on time? I'd love to share a little story that I didn't get to share last night at the AG meeting, and it's around that topic. Can I share it quickly?
Yeah. Yes, of course.
Yeah. So when I was over in India, and I was there at the year 3 of them celebrating polio being gone from India, they had all the heads of state from Afghanistan and Pakistan there to say, and Nigeria, to say, look, if we can do it, so can you. And actually, President Ravi, past President Ravindran from Sri Lanka, I don't know if any of you have ever come across him. He's currently chair of the foundation. He's an extraordinarily wise man, an incredible charisma, and very, very bright. And he was speaking at this conference, and he said that he lived in Sri Lanka, and they realized if they couldn't get rid of polio in Sri Lanka, how on earth did India have a chance? Because if you think about the map from school, right, there's India, and then Sri Lanka is this little island down here. So he said, he was district governor at the time, and he said, right, I'm going to write to the head of the Taliban. So they had the Tamil Tigers in Sri Lanka, equivalent of the Taliban. And everyone said, what, you can't write to a terrorist. What are you doing? That's like crazy. You put yourself at risk. And he said, well, I'm going to. So he just decided he would. So he wrote to the head of the Tamil Tigers. And in this massive, massive corporate arena, he stood there and he held up a bit of paper. And it was the answer that he got from the head of the Tamil Tigers. And the answer said, our war is not against the children. You tell us when you want to down our weapons, and we'll help with the vaccines. Nobody else could have got that job done, because it would always been perceived as a political or a religious agenda. It was only Rotarians that could have got that job done. And that made me realize how proud I am to be a Rotarian.
They duplicated that in Pakistan, didn't they, Nicki? They did it there as well.
Yep. We achieve things that nobody else can, not just on that sort of scale, but even just from the fact that we work with other Rotarians who know what the needs are. You know, they know what the needs are. We don't project onto them. So many good intentions in the world are out there, but they never stop and ask what the community needs. Rotarians work from a principle of knowing what the community needs. And that's why our work is so important.
Now we have 2 questions, and I want to lump them together if I may. Richard Lees is saying, how can we capture news or you can do anything during lockdown with all its constraints? And then Mary's saying, well, what's the biggest issue that Rotary faces at this moment today?
So say the first one again, please, Alison.
How can we adapt you can do anything when we're in lockdown? We can't do face-to-face, we're perhaps over the age of volunteering, etc. And then what's Rotary's biggest issue today?
Okay, so first question, we can do so much. I mean, when I look at how much, you know, I didn't expect to be taking this role on and never leave my house for months, you know, but we can do things. And again, go back to the vocational skills. You know, what about if we help the charities that we support through vocational skills? You can do work remotely if you've got counting skills, or if you've got marketing skills, or if you've got any legal skills, you know, there's lots of ways you can offer your services and still not leave your home. Translation skills with language, you know, so it's about thinking differently. It's about still wanting and having the heart for service. But yes, don't put yourself at risk. If you're an at-risk over, you know, if you're over the age of being at risk and you haven't had a vaccine, you don't have to do it that way, but you can still encourage others. You can still mentor someone else. So I think it is about doing it differently. And the biggest challenge that I think Rotary faces now, is this worldwide or is this here? And maybe actually the answer is both. I think the biggest challenge we face is we're our own best secret. We're our own best kept secret still. And it's just heartbreaking to think how we don't get credit for the work we do. We don't talk about it enough. We don't showcase it enough. And I think that's partly because I think we sometimes try and do too much and people get confused, you know. So I think a little bit more focus on what we're doing and making sure that what we're doing has real sustainable impact. It's that key word of sustainability. It's that teaching a village to fish instead of buying them a fish, right? It's that same concept.
Thank you.
So more focus.
And Drew Lacey is making a comment, and he says, thanks to Zoom, it's enabled folk to keep in touch with families because they've been separated from families. But I would also add to that, thanks to Zoom, there's many training opportunities, speaking opportunities at no cost, no risk when you put something online.
Absolutely. Can I say one more thing that people can do? I think sometimes, you know, we do need to accept that there are Rotarians, and it's not necessarily age specific, but Rotarians who are just not comfortable with technology. And never mind just Rotarians. Think about all of those people who are out there and isolated. So everyone can pick up the phone. Everyone can find someone to call. And, you know, maybe that's another way that we can still contribute and give, just to keep somebody company. You don't have to give them advice. That lovely talk with Esther Ranson, I think that's what made me think of that. She just said, you know, she started Childline to help children in child abuse situations. She started Silverline because she realized how lonely some people can be when they're a carer, or they're living with someone with dementia who, you know, they can't relate to anymore, but they still want to love them. Everyone can pick up the phone. So I think that's something else that is very important to stay connected right now.
I'm just going to state one last comment, which you obviously have the chance to speak into, and then I'm handing over to Rory for a vote of thanks. And he says membership, perhaps is more social interaction, could be the key to greater awareness and growth, facilitating local charities to bring their concerns to the table and working together. That's Mike Rye.
Yeah, definitely better together. And I don't think, you know, we're all craving connection, and it's a basic human need. So, you know, I'm very outgoing and I love that social interaction, and I love a party, and you know, I think, you know, working together on a joint project and then having a social to celebrate, maybe we don't do enough of that, and then having posting some photos of the outcome of the happiness and the impact it's having is very important. So yes, I think definitely emphasis on social, as well as it's got to be fun. You know, the 4-way test. Yeah. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Well, I think there's a fifth one. Will it be fun? Make sure Rotary's fun. You know, that's, people want to have fun while they're giving service. So let's make sure we give them that chance to have fun.
So Nicki, I thank you for the questions, and now I hand over to my fellow DG, Rory, who will do the official thank you. Rory, to you.
Thank you, Alison. Hi, Nicki.
Hi, Rory.
You're absolutely right about having fun and selling Rotary to people who are currently volunteering, wondering why they should pay £10 a month. Just tell them we're having fun giving service, and I think that's so important. Nicki, your enthusiasm is almost palpable, which really bodes well for the future of Rotary. To use your earlier expression, we just need to bottle it and sell it to the public, leveraging off our public image representatives in our clubs. You mentioned earlier clubs locally collaborating, your own club collaborating with other clubs nearby and specialising. I think that's a really good idea. So instead of clubs remaining in their silos, working together, just as we 4 districts have been collaborating with our talks, and that's worked really well. You mentioned age earlier, and I'm now 68. And I believe that the prospect of having younger dynamic leaders is very attractive, and will create stimulus to the objective of encouraging younger people to join Rotary. And having someone younger like you, Nicki, I'm sure will help. So thank you for giving up your time. And please, everyone, unmute yourselves and join me in a round of applause to Nicki.
Pleasure. Thank you all for giving me your time tonight and coming together, because I think that's, it's connecting. Great. Thank you so much.
Good. I'd also like to thank my fellow DGs here tonight, and of course Mary, Adams and Ian for helping facilitate tonight and organise. And you two, the members, for giving up your time. Thank you so much. Mary, do you want to talk about the next event?
I'm very happy to talk about the next event. The next event in March will be on March the 19th, and we will be having James Thomas talk to us about how he set up a passport club during COVID. Now, talking about bottling good feelings and how wonderful Rotary is. He's a classic example. He's a young Rotaractor who's currently chair of the Rotaractors of Rotary GB and Ireland. He's very enthusiastic. He's got lots of great membership ideas. So following on from this evening, his talk will be called The Passport to Rotary. So please join us on March 19th. Same time, and we will of course be sending the links out via your DGs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary. Alison, is there anything, and Chris, is there anything that you want to say before we close tonight?
I would just say it's a pleasure that we have the opportunity to work together and to share this platform, and I'm sure we're looking for further opportunities and we'll find them.
I just think that this is the beginning, demonstrating how we can all work together. We start small, learn from it, and carry on organically.
Yeah, I'm so grateful.
We're not being forced into it.
So grateful that you as districts are volunteering to lead the way, and I do think that the more that clubs collaborate and get outside beyond their own club walls, the more we'll make a difference. So thank you for modelling that.
Well, thank you ever so much, everyone.
Yeah.
And I would say have a safe journey home, but you haven't got far to go. Thanks a lot. Good night.
Thank you very much, Nicki.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you all you do. Bye.